Welcome back, Momentous building family. This is Patrick Robertson here. Today we're going to talk about what the future is looking like for Houston, Texas housing market. Specifically, we want to look at the projections for multifamily, what our thoughts are going forward in May 2023 as we approach the end of Q2, Q3, and Q4 of the year. Really exciting. So let's dive right in. What we're seeing in Houston is that, and over across the nation, is that there's an affordability problem, especially in Texas, as there's been a massive influx of people coming in. Over the last 20 years, Texas has had a population boom, but specifically in the last 2 years or 3 years with the pandemic, this has exponentially grown, creating the local residents to have an affordability issue with finding some housing that actually they can afford to live in. Now, Houston is actually the closest major Texas metros being in the sector of being affordable when compared to a national average. Houston right now is at a 3 out of 10 people, actually a little bit higher. They're almost at 4 out of 10 people can afford a house in this with an average median income. Now, if we look at Dallas or Austin, which are notorious for being a little bit more expensive, they're actually at a 2 out of 10. So they're about 17% less affordable for the average median income earner to buy a house in Houston, or in Texas, excuse me. So what does that really mean? That means comparatively, Houston overall is definitely becoming more and more challenging to actually buy a home. But ultimately, when we compare the major metros across Texas, we are seeing that Houston is being more affordable in comparison. However, when we look at Texas in general, it is such a big state that there are so many more tertiary cities, smaller cities like Tyler, Texas, and these other areas that are extremely popular. They don't have the multi-million population of residents living in these cities, but they're becoming more and more popular as people are willing to commute or maybe move so that they can afford to live in their home still. Just to give you some facts and figures about the increase in home prices, since 1998, the average home has appreciated in value 354% in those years. So roughly 25 years, 354% increase in home prices. And with every $1,000 increase to a home price, whether it be Houston or anywhere in Texas, we are actually pricing out 22,000 residents from being able to buy that home. So as you can see, there is definitely an affordability issue. Now, what does the market actually look like and what is driving this demand that we are seeing? We are seeing a massive influx of population and a need for housing for the working class. So the working class is being priced out of actually buying a home and having a place to live that's affordable. With that, we have about 1,100 companies coming in the last 2 years to Texas as giant corporations that are going to provide thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. Now they also bring people in to live in Texas, so it's not just servicing the existing population. So we see a massive demand from both outside factors coming in and a growing population within. I predict that this is going to have a really interesting fact for multifamily housing, especially in the blue-collar affordability sector. I think this sector is going to go on and on in growth, as we have seen that most multifamilies and commercial housing facilities are being built as A-class. And is the older B and C type of properties that run for the $1,000 to $1,200 rent in that area, maybe even $1,500, that people need more of. Moreover, these older properties typically that are running for the lower rents, they're old and dilapidated, and I think there's a lot of repairs that need to happen to provide some really good housing for these people. As housing increases, as these interest rates affect people, and maybe even forcing people to move out of their home or making the smart decision to capitalize on the equity they have and then going into renting, there's going to be a massive demand, whether recession or not, affordable multifamily class housing for blue-collar workers. It's definitely going to be really, really interesting. I don't think that this area is going to go anywhere. If we look at Houston in general compared to Texas, I think that there's going to be a lot of people that want to live in a metropolitan area like a Dallas, like an Austin, like a Houston, but they're being priced out of Austin and Dallas and some of these other larger cities. So I think that's also going to create an increased demand for Houston as they seek those more affordable houses that are, on average 17% more affordable than the average median income. So another big win for Houston, bringing people into the area. And might be a slower change, but overall people are going to have to make this move eventually, whether to seek rental housing or actually long-term purchasing a home, purchasing a condo, and these different things. From a government perspective, to provide incentive or provide things for housing for residents, there was a program that was brought in about 4 or 5 years ago called Houston's Community Trust. And what this did, they tried to set up a program to provide affordable housing and build about 1,100 new homes in Houston, Texas. This happened after the massive storm, bringing homes down back in the day. But what happened is that their plan didn't really execute on it. They've only provided about 136 homes roughly at this time. The plan hasn't gone all the way through. There are actions being taken and incentives being created, but they haven't been executed on properly as planned. I think that going forward in the future, there's definitely going to be some good opportunities for a private-public relationship to help really increase these supply of affordable housing, both from the private industry to be able to afford it, whether it's tax incentives and whatnot, and then also for the residents so they have a place to live that's affordable and good quality housing. We just talked about how some of the housing that's going to be popular is the older multi-family buildings because they are cheaper and they need some work, but it's also providing quality housing. So how do we have quality housing for people that they're not living in a 30-year-old apartment that needs to get remodeled, but they're living in a nice, clean, healthy environment that they enjoy living in, that is not pain and torture? I think that's going to be the real problem that is going to need to be solved as we see the more population increase, as the residents, more and more people just keep coming to Texas. And I think Houston, regardless of what happens in the economy, I think that people are going to continue to pour in just because of that affordability factor over some of the other larger cities in Texas. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me here today. This is Patrick Robertson of Momentous Building, and we will catch you guys on the next one.